Hello, and welcome to this special Christmas episode of Anime Audio Commentary. Today I'll be commenting on episode 2 of Chobits. If you'd like to watch along, then start watching now. Man, that really is an opening I don't think I'll ever get tired of. And I just noticed watching it this time, but the characters are sort of singing along too, which I do appreciate. Oh boy. So last we left off, Hideki, our main character here, found a persicom in the trash, and while she seems to be a bit impaired or otherwise lacking, I think it's fair to say that a persicom is better than no persicom, so, you know, you'll just have to live with it. So, okay, so she's just lying in bed next to him. I figured she would have, wandered off or something, but at least she doesn't seem to have picked up a trait like that. Because, realistically, if she were just walking around as she is, that would be, a real big problem. I mean, one can only imagine what sorts of trouble she would get into. I mean, I guess the one thing I can say is that the world of Chobits seems to be a largely optimistic one where random passers-by and strangers that you meet will be, largely kind and helpful. As evidenced by Hideki meeting his next-door neighbor and his landlord. Both of them were reasonably helpful and friendly. And it's not that they had no reason to be, but, in my experience, I've had neighbors and landlords who are certainly less than friendly or helpful. Oh dear. So she has, not really learned what the purpose of eating food is, unfortunately. I don't imagine she would need it, but, man. So I guess it's just gonna have to explain, I found this persicom in the trash. I'm not inviting girls over. But, I guess from Hideki's point of view, what's the real difference, So the neighbor here, he seems to be more knowledgeable of persicoms in general, so I'm wondering, is he just gonna point out, hey, your persicom's a little bit unusual, she might need to go to a repair shop or something? And you know what, repairs and stuff like that would be interesting in a world like this, just because, repairing computers is a bit of a pain in the fundament. A lot of times it's not something you can do yourself, even when you have the appropriate tools and equipment, because, well, computers are frankly so complicated that a lot of manufacturers don't share schematics. it's almost sort of contrived that it's easier to buy a new computer than repair one that you have. But, that all aside, Hideki's sort of landing onto this point. It's like, okay, so there are ports to connect to the internet and all that. But at the same time, this Persicom, she's a little... Oh my gosh. Oh dear, I feel elderly now. I recognize RGB cables. Wow. Like, oh god, just computers with wired implements, like, that's already something. Ooh. So that's something. For no data to come up is, probably not a good thing for Chi. Like... Oh! Okay, so it's that she doesn't even have an operating system. Which, as I'm given to understand, this is like, you buy like a brand new hard drive with nothing on it, entirely blank, and therefore, useless for running a computer unless you install stuff on it. So I guess the question is, like, where do you go from here? Can you just buy, like, an operating system? Like, do Persicoms run off of Linux? Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of... Whoa, buddy. Yeah, I feel like Hideki should calm down a bit and realize that a Persicom is a computer. Whoa, buddy. So, I think at this point it's fairly safe to say that that little CD Hideki neglected to pick up was in fact an operating system or some important software for Chi. Like, I guess the idea is that if they're struggling to find her model number, she's some sort of custom unit or maybe like a black market prototype or something. Because, like, normally when you manufacture things, they do get serial numbers, and it's a pretty standardized process. And seeing as how I don't think somebody would file the serial number off, I doubt something like that could be done in a case like this. I don't know. The fact that she also bricked another Persicom just by connecting to it, like, that's not a good sign either. That would be indicative to me of, like, malware or a virus or some other horrible coding bug that just, like, bricks something upon contact. Like... Wow, okay. So she has a gigantic CPU that is apparently not really being used judging by how she acts. Huh. So I guess just like that, he's given an address to a Persicom specialist, who I can only assume is sort of like a do-it-yourself sort of computer repair guy. Alright, so I guess Hideki still hasn't really given her a name, much less proper clothing. Wow. He really does wear his heart on his sleeve. I feel like now and again it might be a good idea to just sort of, play it in the pocket, just sort of not freak out. But I guess this is kind of what I was saying, this is a very optimistic, kind world where the landlord's willing to help him out in this bizarre situation. Oh, Hideki, man. If you think about stuff like that, you're only gonna cause problems. So, the plot is really thickening in my mind because Chi, despite not having an operating system or really much going on upstairs at all, like, she's capable of motion and mimicking behavior, which, that's not nothing. You can't be totally brain dead and still do that, so, I guess this would indicate that, like, something is hard-coded into her, or perhaps hardwired, you know, or maybe that's not the right term, maybe like the physical hardware itself has stuff embedded into it. I don't know. I'm not much of a computer guy. You know, that's a little ominous that the computer repair guy is like, oh yeah, no, I knew you were coming here. Like, because I don't think his neighbor... Like, his neighbor just gave him directions, right? He didn't say, like, oh, I called the guy ahead of time, like, just drop by. And, oh, buddy. So I was going to say, if the guy's living in a mansion, clearly he's successful in some regard. You know, like his Persicom skills must be high in demand. Well, I guess I'm sort of revising my opinion here. You know, if he's a rich kid, as indeed he seems to be, then I guess he would have time to learn all about Persicoms. Yeah, now this is, kind of unsettling. Although I'm noticing something here, like, all the Persicoms seem to have the same blank-eyed expression, like Chi. So I guess she's not unique in that regard. I was wondering if, like, her blank eyes were indicative of her not having an operating system or otherwise being kind of messed up, but it seems like it's a common feature. And notably, the Persicom specialist here is the same sort of way, so I'm wondering, you know, is this like a little early indication that he's an android? I mean, I guess so far that we've seen, all Persicoms seem to be women, so if our specialist here were also a Persicom, that would be interesting. I guess what's also interesting is that she seemingly busted all the other Persicoms. Like, that's gotta be pretty spectacular if she's so souped up that literally nothing else can even interface with her. So this Persicom here, she's custom built too, which is something, but she seems more sophisticated than the others. I mean, I guess just like the mannerisms and the manner of speech. It's kind of interesting. So I guess it indicates to me here that custom built machines are generally speaking of a higher caliber, which it could make sense. You know, if someone really knows what they're doing with computers, then they would be able to, make something really high-end. But generally speaking, I would feel like you could generally buy more powerful stuff pre-built than you could making it yourself. Just because, you know, if you're buying something pre-built, it's normally cheaper rather than buying all the individual parts and cobbling it together yourself. That really didn't sound good. You know, that sounded like a memory disk, like, really speeding up and all that. So, it's interesting that, there was very nearly a critical accident here where, like, data was... They said crashed, but I assume they mean, like, corrupted or otherwise damaged. And, you know, it was just, like, stuff like chores, not personality data. So, I feel like, maybe they might be messing with fire here. Because I know a little bit about messing with software, and, like, if you're messing with stuff you don't fully understand, a good thing to do is to, like, put it inside a virtual machine. You know, to make, like, a modeled computer within a computer. But, like, I don't know if you could do such a thing with the Persicom. Because that would be like, I guess, having like a little digital Persicom on a computer. Yeah, so they're saying, like, the data crashed, but she says she needs to, restore it from a backup. So, it seems like, people really shouldn't be connecting with Chi willy-nilly. Okay. So the plot's getting thicker. Chi is what might be a Chobit, which is to say, some insanely high-end, secretive persicom. Although I guess the question is, if someone were to make such a thing, why would it not have a personality, or an operating system? Ooh. Okay, so Chobits have free will, which is interesting. So I guess we're butting up against Asimov's laws again. Most Chobits follow the 3 laws and all that, but a Chobit would be theoretically unbound by the laws, and therefore potentially very dangerous. I guess it's fortunate that she seems to be, at this point, entirely benevolent and innocent. So I guess, Hideki doesn't quite understand the gravity of the situation. He just understands that it's a special persicom. And, not even necessarily true. But I guess, looking on the positive side here, with an android that has free will, that changes the dynamic. You can't treat it like owner and object, because, like, if a Chobit, or if a persicom rather, truly does have free will, as Chi might, then I don't know, you can't just treat it like any other persicom, Although I guess at this point, Chi doesn't really seem mentally competent or able to take care of herself, so, you can sort of get away with fudging things for now, at least in regards to taking care of her. That's probably another thing. I don't know what sort of maintenance procedures are needed for a persicom, and I'd be willing to bet Hideki doesn't either. Ooh. Okay. So Chi was doing something, which... I guess, she has some inbuilt functionality even without an operating system. Okay. So that's interesting. She does have some form of software installed, if not the operating system. But I would feel like, without the operating system, what can you really do? Maybe this is just persicoms being different. Maybe this is the writers not understanding computers. But... okay. Yeah. So, essentially, the responsibility falls to Hideki. Like, she can learn. You have to teach her. And, if she truly does have free will, then, you probably have to take a little bit of extra care here and there. It's interesting in a way to be essentially given an android and tasked with, like, alright, teach it to be human. Like, it's close enough, it's got the capability. Ooh. So Hideki has been given a warning here. Don't fall in love. And I guess that might be good advice for an android, normally, or a persicom rather, because, like, they don't have their own free will and all that, but even in this instance, it's still probably good advice, because suppose she does. If she has her own free will and she doesn't reciprocate, like, boy howdy, you're in for a rude awakening. Now that said, I feel like Hideki's already falling into cheese clutches, so to speak. Now, I do like how he's pontificating about how to teach her as if she isn't already copying his mannerisms. You know, at this point I feel like it's one of those unfortunate instances where you really have to brush up and become a better person. Because I feel like she's going to absorb bad habits like a sponge, and that's just not good, you know? You know, it's like being like a parent of a toddler and swearing in front of your kid. Like, you can bet they will learn that swear word regardless of how much you try and tell them not to. Yeah, so I guess lesson 1, modesty. Yeah, I don't know if she's gonna take this one right away, but what can you do? I guess on the upside, she has something proper to wear now rather than an oversized shirt and oversized pants. Yeah, you know what? Maybe he shouldn't be, like, asking her verbally, like, hey, is it okay if I turn around now? Like, she hasn't displayed the ability to answer in those regards, so, unfortunately, you might have to take a more active approach in the beginning. Okay, yeah, so I guess now he's getting down to it. Time for a name. Well, I kind of disagree with him. I don't think a name is the first place to start. Maybe like rudimentary language, you know? I mean, I guess the name is something you should learn early on. However, I guess maybe understanding what other words mean first. Well, you know, for all his supposed faults, I think he's gonna do alright, you know. Alright, well that's it for this episode. If you've enjoyed it, then by all means, tune in for the next one. Merry Christmas, Space Cowboy.